In today's fast-paced and hyper-connected world, anxiety has become an all-too-familiar companion for many. The demands and complexities of modern life can sometimes feel like a relentless storm, wreaking havoc on our mental well-being. Information overload, work-life imbalance, social pressures, financial insecurity, isolation and loneliness, health and wellness, are some of the problems that accompany us today. All of these negative situations that we encounter in our daily lives, which serve as the root of our worries, are not new. Human beings have been grappling with challenges since time immemorial. Even the Stoic philosophers themselves, in their quest for a serene and peaceful life, faced anxiety and pondered its intricacies. Zenon of Citium lost all his possessions in a shipwreck. Marcus Aurelius, as a Roman emperor, had to confront wars, political turmoil, and plagues. Epictetus was twice exiled and spent 30 years as a slave. They all lived through harrowing circumstances, and these experiences drove them to delve into the realms of suffering and anxiety. In this video, we will explore the 4 techniques the Stoics used to prevent anxiety from dominating their lives. But to conquer it, we must first understand what anxiety is. It could be defined as a state of mental preoccupation, nervousness, and restlessness. This mental state emerges when we fret over the future. Although anxiety primarily resides in the mind, it can manifest physically, leading to shortness of breath, cold sweats, and even dizziness. All this turmoil occurs within our own heads, which means we have control over it. Moreover, we create anxiety through the significance we attribute to various situations. In essence, we are perfectly capable of altering our perception of the world around us, and this is applicable to anxiety. You get to choose which problems concern you and which you brush aside. It's within your mind and under your control. Consequently, anxiety is something we create ourselves and something we have the power to cease. Marco Aurelius encapsulates this perspective quite effectively in a single statement: "Today I escaped anxiety." Or no, I discarded it, because it was within me, in my own perceptions. Just as Marco Aurelius did, we can discard and eliminate anxiety from our lives. You might be thinking that it's easy to say we can discard anxiety, but in practice, it's impossible. Or perhaps you believe that Marco Aurelius was out of touch with reality. However, this is not the case. Marco Aurelius had the daunting responsibility of leading and governing the Roman Empire. He had to contend with senators, politicians, discontented citizens, manage the vast resources of his empire, and even combat a plague. His life was also marked by the tragedy of losing his children. So, how did Marco Aurelius manage not to be overwhelmed by anxiety? Marco Aurelius and the Stoics primarily employed 4 Stoic tools to alter their perception and thus attain a tranquil and joyful life. 1. Negative visualization. Take a moment to reflect on the source of your anxiety. Once you've identified what's causing your worry, imagine it coming true in your life. Place yourself in the worst-case scenario. Ask yourself, what is the worst that can happen if this source of anxiety materializes? This kind of thinking offers us several solutions to help manage anxiety. The first solution is that, in many situations, you'll realize that what you initially believed to be dreadful and anxiety-inducing may not be as dire as you initially thought. By envisioning the worst possible outcome, we often come to the realization that it's not as terrible as we initially perceived. This can lead us to the second solution, which is being proactive. When we visualize the problem, it motivates us to seek a solution. Consider the following: is what I'm experiencing genuinely grave? If it's not that serious, is it necessary for me to suffer so much because of it? And if it is a serious matter, rather than lamenting and suffering, I should prepare to seek a solution. Proactivity solves problems, while anxiety exacerbates them. 2. Dichotomy of control. After using negative visualization to gain mental clarity about our problem, we must reflect on whether we can control what concerns us. Recognizing that we have control over something empowers us to seek a solution. In cases where we have no control over what worries us, we must learn to accept that there is nothing we can do to change it. Consider this: if I have control over my problems, why worry and suffer when it's within my power to seek a solution? Conversely, if I lack control over the situation that worries me, what sense does it make to suffer and live in perpetual anxiety over something I cannot change? Will anxiety magically resolve my problem? It's also crucial to realize that anxiety is a reflection of our future concerns. This means that nobody can be certain that what worries you will come to pass in the future. We should understand that, in many cases, we are fretting about issues beyond our control, and they may never materialize. In other words, we are worrying about an imaginary problem, and even if it does happen, we cannot do anything about it. 3. Amor fati. Once we understand that there are some problems beyond our control and that we cannot resolve them, we must embrace the idea that what happens to us is part of life. Every person encounters unpleasant situations, yet they continue to move forward. Accept these challenges and recognize that they are a part of your life and your growth as a human being. Amor fati, the love of one's fate, is likely the most challenging Stoic tool among those mentioned in this video, but undoubtedly the most effective. When you manage to accept what occurs in your life, you shed all your past perceptions of that problem. At that moment, your problems become inconsequential in your life. Stoic acceptance involves viewing every negative situation as a test, as a task to overcome with virtue. It's about changing your perspective. This adversity you're facing serves to make you better, to become wiser, braver, fairer, and more temperate. If it serves to make you better, why suffer for it? 4. Memento mori. As we've seen earlier, anxiety arises from worrying about a future problem. Therefore, one of the most powerful tools the Stoics used was an attempt to connect with the present and let go of the future. When our concern is limited to the here and now, anxiety dissipates. Connecting with the present is not only crucial for overcoming anxiety, it's also essential because we must remember that death will eventually reach us all. Our time is limited, which is why we shouldn't squander it by magnifying future problems. Is there a solution to death? There isn't one. Yet, we live our lives, conquer problems, and strive for happiness. Is there a problem graver than death? I don't believe anyone would argue that there is. Furthermore, we have the certainty that it will happen to us at some point in our lives, and it's unsolvable. Don't you think your problem is far less severe than this? The Stoic memento mori, the reminder that we all die at some point, should serve as a realization that our problems aren't as grave as they may seem, and we must use our precious time to be happy and virtuous, not to live in suffering. Enjoy what you're doing right now in the present because this moment won't come again. Recognize the value in this and savor it as it deserves. These 4 tools are sufficient to understand that we have absolute control over anxiety. I recommend reflecting on each of them alongside a meditation exercise to help us relax and focus on our thoughts without disturbances, in tranquility. To conclude, I'll leave you with a couple of Stoic quotes about anxiety. Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but our judgments about these things." On the other hand, Seneca stated, "We suffer more in our imagination than in reality." Please feel free to share your thoughts on these 4 Stoic tools in the comments. I'll see you soon on our quest for mental freedom.